this day? Because it's obviously a different off day than usual
Right.
if they're in
Well,
training.
the only reason, different off days because we're here. But a lot of guys have already come in, they've gotten treatment. Some of them have gone in and looked at tape already on their own. I think what'll happen is some of these guys will enjoy, being here for the event. As I talked about earlier, to me, the Super Bowl is twofold. One is it's an event, and, there are certain things that go on at the event. But also the other part of it is that it's a game. And there are certain elements of when you're working and preparing, you've got to be where you are. I have a friend that says, be where your feet are. So the bottom line is when it's time to work, it's time to meet, it's time to practice, be there. And then eventually comes Sunday, when it's time to play, be there.
In terms of treatment?
Well, I thought Thomas looked really good in practice. He used that hand, that arm, and again, one of the concerns with it really is just, what would happen if he had to deliver a blow, use it as, to deliver a shock. And he seemed to weather that yesterday very nicely. Today he came in, got his normal set of treatment like he did in the morning. He'll probably come back and sometime in the early to mid-afternoon, get a little bit of a treatment then, and then he'll probably come back later on in the evening, sometime around 6 or 7 probably, and get another dose of treatment. He seems to be responding very nicely to it. He looks good. And again, like I said, I don't doubt Thomas.
Cam's development.
Well, I think it's very huge, and you can also throw Kenny Dorsey into that mix as well because, all of us have really been together, for a period of time, and I think that's been huge in terms of his development, his growth because of the familiarity. I think knowing the person a little more intimately has been important, and you can't really develop that type of relationship of trust until you've been around one another for a while, and I think that has helped us tremendously. I think that's been a big part of his growth. He has 3 guys that have been around him that he can, fall back to and for whatever the situation, circumstances are, rely on us and be able to come to us with those, those questions, and not just football questions, but, life questions. And it's kind of neat because, he's recently become a father, and it's been interesting that he's been able to, talk to all 3 of us, having been fathers at one point or another, about, his growth as a person.
All right.
I think it's because he not only does he talk it, but he walks it. He's one of those guys that's all in, and he's truly committed. A lot of people don't see the things that he does, behind the scenes, the workouts, the extra film time, the extra meeting time, coming in on Tuesday, his day off, to sit down with the other 2 quarterbacks and go through what they see on tape and talk about things that they think might work. And then he goes upstairs and he takes it to Mike Shula and Kenny Dorsey and the other offensive coaches when they're game planning and say, hey, look, these are things that I see. These are things that I think might help. And then the coaches ask him, well, what do you like? What do you want to put in? And I think that's been great. And I think that his teammates know that. They know that he's willing to make those kind of commitments on his day off. And when you see a guy that's willing to do things on his day off on his own, I think that just signifies that there's a commitment. It's like the same thing with some of the guys that want to play that are injured. I mean, the Jared Allen with the foot, I think the way his teammates have responded, him trying to get on the field, me having to slow him down, how the guys came to me and said, well, Coach, he says he can play. I says, I know, but let's be honest about certain things. And then the same thing with Thomas Davis. When players see guys going above and beyond, I think that's invaluable, and I think that's what his teammates see with Cam, is that it's invaluable, that he's trying to make that effort, that commitment to do the things the right way to help us win football games.
Do you think you do a lot better now than when you started as a head coach?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with really just knowing the things to do and the things to say. I think part of it has to do with some of my decision making as far as what's going on in the game, in terms of when to go for certain things, when to do certain things, and when to have the coaches do certain things, ask of the players certain things during games. I think part of it has been the way we handle and do things in terms of practice, meeting time, some of those things, and I think it's also learning how to handle certain people in certain situations, not related to games, but I think it's really been that way. I think. In terms of management, handling certain circumstances, I guess some of the things that I've learned is like you need to tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. So having to deal with people in a different fashion, a different way.
Take one.
Patience, kind of goes a long way. You've been now with the Panthers a little bit, getting better each and every year. Talk a little bit about patience.
You know, Liz, I think the biggest thing, more so than anything else that's happened for us has been the continuity. I mean, you know, my coaching staff, the coaching staff we have on this football team, a lot of these guys, most of those guys have been with us from the beginning. They've been here at least 5 seasons, or at the most 5 seasons, and at the least, I think, 4 seasons. With these guys on this, you know, on this staff, there is a continuity that I think helps the players. You know, we've been able to maintain and keep the same type of offensive and defensive styles of football, and special teams is probably the one thing that we've really been working on to get better and better, and I think we've done a nice job with it down the stretch, especially, you know, with what Coach DeHaven and Coach Purnell have wanted. But when you look at what we do on the offensive side, our quarterback really has been in one system. I know he's had 2 coordinators, but both those coordinators share the same philosophies and ideas in a lot of things that we do. Probably the biggest thing, though, that has happened has been how we've turned it over last season, going into week 13, where we put a lot on the quarterback. Well, we're playing to the quarterback skill set, I think, has been good, but it's been pretty much the same style, the same system. On the defensive side, you know, people talk about how fast our guys play. Well, it's the same system. You know, Sean built this system with Coach Wilkes working with him, and the rest of the defensive coaches, Eric Washington, you know, and Sammy Mills, who've been with us from the beginning. These guys are really working and teaching these guys the same thing. So to be able to just fall back on what you've done, I think has been very beneficial to our players. I think that's probably the biggest thing. And they've grown in this system. You know, from the time KK and Star have been here, they've been learning and growing with the same coach, you know, whether it be the coordinator or the position coaches. I think that's, you know, that's very important. I think with Luke, you know, he's had the same guy with him, you know, for 4 years, and helping him to grow and become, you know, the football player that we always envisioned he'd be able to. And again, the relationship that Cam has with Mike and Kenny for 5 seasons, I think has helped him in terms of his growth. So I think as far as our football team's concerned, having that continuity has been very important, and I think a big part of our growth as a team.